Hi and welcome to SCW, the wrestling channel here on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now, leave any comments in the comment section. Please like and share the video as well. This is episode 4 of Ask SCW. Just before we get started with this week's questions, you can throw a question anytime, any point during the week. You can leave it either in the comments of YouTube videos or you can just message me on Twitter, SCW Wrestling Channel on Twitter with the @SCW_Steve, and yet you can ask me a question. Use the hashtag AskSCW, and I know then to actually use those on future episodes when I do the Q&As on here. We've got lots of questions to get through this week. Sadly, for the ones that asked me regarding NXT TakeOver, I was hoping to record yesterday to get those questions on, but unfortunately work restricted me, so I couldn't really get a video on in time, unfortunately. So apologies to those people that ask questions, but do get new questions in, and I'll address you guys next week on the show. Just to let you know as well, with next week, episode 5, like I say, straight away I'm going to be taking questions from probably even now, really, if you want to. I'm going to aim to record and post by Thursday next week. So that's when I'm aiming to post for the following episode of Ask SCW. But enough about that. Let's go with this week. We've got a few questions to go through. Going to start with Samuel Decius. Why is WWE failing to book these 3 superstars at a high level? Drew McIntyre, Braun Strowman, and Samoa Joe. Wouldn't it be nice if they had more compassion to work with and not just focusing on Seth Rollins? Well, I think it's a great point, really. It was longer with the question, really. Of course, it seems to be everyone's attention is either focused on Seth Rollins or they're not on TV. We've seen Baron Corbin is another example, really. He's been in three pay-per-views in a row with Seth Rollins. Now he's not on SummerSlam. It just seems to show that, unfortunately, WWE doesn't seem to have a lot of plans for these superstars right now, which is really strange because these guys are big. They've been important in storylines for a number of years now, and they're not featured towards the top of the card, and they're not featured on what's arguably the second biggest show of the year, SummerSlam. None of them going in before the kickoff has started were given official matches. Now, of course, that can change if you're watching this and the kickoff has happened and then they've been thrown in the last minute match, but I agree. I think WWE needs to focus more on who they consider their main event talent, and those guys should be heavily focused on. And they shouldn't be just focused around people like Seth or who the champion is. They should be feuding amongst each other as well. I would love to see a Braun Strowman feud with either Drew McIntyre or Samoa Joe going into pay-per-view. If Samoa Joe has turned face, why not a feud with Drew McIntyre? Why not a triple threat? I'd be well up for that. I think it'd be a great idea to throw them 3 in together. We mentioned even Baron Corbin there a minute ago. I mean, personally, I don't mind the heel work. I know people are not a fan of Baron Corbin, so I'm risking those thumbs down when I mention him. But I mean, he was featured in a main event program with Seth Rollins for a good couple of months, and he's not even on SummerSlam. So it does make you think that maybe WWE needs to have a creative backup ideas with and certain storylines and certain angles which don't involve championships, and maybe that is the real key issue here, that we don't see enough of that in WWE today. There isn't really a purpose if there's not a championship or a number 1 contendership. There doesn't seem to be just an idea of throwing a storyline out from nothing. So for me, that's what I would like to see more of, an idea of seeing storylines. I mean, we look at Bobby Lashley. I know he's out injured at the minute, but him and Braun Strowman, they had kind of a good thing going on. It didn't start off the best with the tug of wars and the arm wrestling matches, but it got better, particularly when they started going, through the Tron area, the electrical area. That was really cool. And the last man standing match, in the end, that kind of turned into a successful feud in the end. So why not do more of that? I'd like to see that done with these guys going forward, particularly. And that goes through the whole card, really, because that's how we're going to make new stars. We're not going to make new stars without proper storyline buildings, proper angles, and pushing the guys that you need on the top need to be on the biggest shows. I do understand the idea of people taking a break, and if you can't have creative for someone all the time. And I like the idea of someone getting a rest period as well. I mean, if we're not going to have an off season in WWE, we have 52 weeks of the year. It would be nice for certain superstars to get a couple of weeks or a few weeks break here and there. But at the same time, if they're some of your biggest stars, I think they should be involved. And if they're not going to be on TV, maybe a storyline angle to write them off TV would be really cool, rather than just them disappearing for a month or two. I think that is something that needs to be looked into more. We could argue it's lazy writing in WWE, but I'd like to see that, either an injury angle or a suspension, something to put people off TV for, if they're not going to be booked for maybe the next 4 weeks, because we're going to give them a break from this pay-per-view, and then they're going to come back in. Because I kind of don't mind the idea of people sharing, the spotlight and getting more TV time, pay-per-view time. Wouldn't be great to see guys like, I don't know, EC3 maybe get a chance to get on TV, get over. Maybe Cesaro, people like that would be great to see them get an opportunity. But no, we're going back to the 3 stars that have been mentioned in this. They should be heavily featured. They should be in a big match this evening. And since none of them are booked, make it a triple threat. Why not throw them in there last minute? Just all out warfare. Make it no DQ while you're at it. Go on, let's make these guys have a hell of a match. Would be awesome to be saying. Though triple threat matches don't have DQs anyway, so you could throw the weapons in there anyway. So why not do that? I'd say that. Throw it as a last minute in there. Next question then, we're going to look from Sucker Punch News. Dream matches for WrestleMania 36. And Sucker Punch goes and says that his is Daniel Bryan versus Johnny Gargano. Well, I tell you what, that would be an epic match of any proportion, especially if they were given the time on a WrestleMania, because that's always the sad part with WrestleMania. I feel that it's always a cluster to get everyone on the card, and as well, they don't always have the longest matches. You seem to think, I think this year's WrestleMania, the match length time was something like, I think it was like under 3 hours of like nearly 5.5 hour show, which shows that a lot of time is spent on advertisements and the video packaging and the entrances to the ring. So I would like to see if them two would have a match. They should have like a half an hour match, and it would be a technical masterclass. So a great shout for your match there. I would be massively on board with that. But to go, and I've listed a few matches myself. Now to go with an actual full-on dream card would be quite difficult to come up with a 6 hour show for you. But what I've done is I've compiled 7 matches. I think that's probably a good way to go from this particular moment. And my main event is kind of a similar way to you. You've gone for like a technical masterclass. Well, I've gone for a triple threat of what I think is three very good workers in the ring together. I'd make that the Universal Championship match. Perhaps that would mean my SmackDown superstar would have to win the Royal Rumble, but if that's the case, probably not the worst thing. I'd have as the champion, I know right now the champion is Brock Lesnar. If you're watching this, I've recorded it before SummerSlam. But my champion is AJ Styles of the OC. He's got the Universal Championship, and he's defending it in a triple threat match against Seth Rollins, and if we have to make him the Royal Rumble winner, Daniel Bryan. I think that would be an awesome triple threat match. Certainly a dream match I would love to see. And yeah, I think it tells itself, that story, really. We don't really need to go into much reasoning why I think that would be an awesome match to put together, particularly an idea for a main event as well. For one of the Women's Championship matches, of course, it's maybe a bit predictable, but I still really want to see it. I want to see the 4 horsewomen in a fatal 4-way. So Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Bayley, a returning Sasha Banks, put them in there for one of the Women's Championships. That's even technically a main event itself. I would like to see that match go down before we had a 4 horsewomen versus 4 horsewomen match, if that ever was to happen, if Sasha Banks is ever to come back. I know there are rumours going around that potentially SummerSlam could be the place she comes back. Depending on when you're watching this, you'll know the answer to that. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen with that. But that would definitely be a match I'd love to see, the 4 horsewomen in a fatal 4-way. I would probably book for the WWE Championship match. I would go with Kevin Owens, because obviously right now it seems to be that they're going to go with that kind of stone cold kind of way with Kevin Owens. And I think it should push him towards the top of the card if he's going to be a big part of the roster. And I've got him against a new member of the OC, Demon Finn Balor. Hopefully, if he's lost to Bray Wyatt at SummerSlam, hopefully he takes a break, comes back as a demon character. The darkness is brought in within him with AJ Styles, with Gallows and Anderson. And then, of course, he's got a good license then to go an undefeated run himself. Perhaps maybe Royal Rumble time, become the WWE champion. And Kevin Owens, both are SmackDown guys, so this would work for me as a WWE Championship standpoint. So I would be fully in favour with that. I've gone for Brock Lesnar. If rumours are true that it's going to be his last match at WrestleMania 36, then I've got if Brock Lesnar loses, he leaves WWE. And I've got him to go against Bobby Lashley with Paul Heyman in his corner, because I think that's the one storyline kind of left for Brock Lesnar that needs to be done in WWE. If you're not going to give him multiple different new opponents to wrestle, we need Paul Heyman to turn on Brock Lesnar. I think that would be an interesting storyline. I think Bobby Lashley would be a guy that would be quite well as a Paul Heyman guy, because perhaps maybe not the strongest on the mic. And I do think as well that it's a match that some people do want to see. I do want to see that match. I know it's not everybody's dream match, but I think that it definitely would be worthy of WrestleMania. And I think if Bobby Lashley was to get the win, I think that would give him a bit of a push. So I'd be well up for that one particularly. As another match I've got down here, well, we mentioned it in the last question, so I've put it down. Triple threat, number one contendership. Braun Strowman, Drew McIntyre, Samoa Joe. It writes itself. One of these guys then can finally get to the main event, perhaps where they should be, and they could go after one of the champions after WrestleMania time. I would put together Bray Wyatt and Aleister Black as a match. Now, I think I've discussed this almost on a weekly basis with Bray Wyatt questions here on SCW, Ask SCW so far, but I said I would have them both undefeated from this point onwards to WrestleMania, and then both of them face each other. One remains undefeated, the other one doesn't. And I don't think it would harm the person then at that point who would be the defeated superstar at that particular time. But I think for both of them, that would really elevate them and make that match seem a bit more special and more important. The last match that I've put together is that I've put together a classic ladder match. We need one of those at WrestleMania. So I've got a number of superstars I've put down for that. So Ricochet, Andrade, Cesaro, Rey Mysterio, Sami Zayn, Ali. I've got Shinsuke Nakamura as well for you there in the ladder match. So that would be what I would do for that particular one. I think it would be a great way to kick off WrestleMania as well. I think that a lot of people would be fairly invested in that. So I would be kind of on board with that if that was to be made into a match. I have no ever mentioned Kofi Kingston and Randy Orton. I suppose they're having a program now, so it would be a bit weird to throw them back in the ring with each other. But maybe a New Day triple threat match could be an idea. I could throw that one in there as well off the top of my head. And yeah, I'm sure Randy Orton, we can give him a suitable opponent as well, perhaps going to WrestleMania. Trying to think of one off the top of my head, but maybe if I can think of one before the end of the video, I'll come back to that. Next question then is with White Man Podcast, and you can show that Johnny Gargano is quite popular this week on these particular videos. Who's the next superstar to show on 205 Live? And I believe that's meant to be Why Isn't It Gargano? Well, I mean, Johnny Gargano got a warm reception and a hug from William Regal after the takeover match. So you do wonder, is he going to be going to the main roster? Is he going to be on WWE programming? Is he going to be on 205 Live? Now, 205 Live would be a great place for Johnny because he's got that sort of size. There is the other question of if he ends up on the main roster with Tommaso Ciampa, because rumours are Ciampa is coming back. They were a part of DIY on WWE programming on the main roster. And although they had perhaps they were going to start another angle for another match, I don't see why. The main roster audience is a lot bigger than the NXT audience, and although there is the diehards that would know what's going on, I think that the main roster has proven many times before they don't care about NXT. So that's a potential thing that could happen with Johnny Gargano. But going back to your actual question, which is 205 Live, the real question is what's going to happen with 205 Live. There's a lot of rumours that it's going to be going towards the end of the year, that they're going to just get rid of it from the network, and what happens then to the Cruiserweight Championship? Does it become part of SmackDown on the main roster, which for me would be my more favourable role, or would you put it in NXT, which of course then it's going to be guaranteed its TV time, probably takeover time as well, and probably would have these longer matches that people would be probably heavily invested in. But if 205 is to survive, I like the idea of we've got the breakout tournament from NXT at the moment. We've got Jordan Miles against Cameron Grimes. I like the idea of Cameron Grimes going over, and of course they get a choice of a championship they're choosing. And what's to say that he doesn't say, well, hang on, I might be the NXT breakout star, but I think that I can go for the Cruiserweight Championship and go for that way. There's a lot of superstars in NXT that are, quite able to go for 205 Live. Isaiah Swerve was on there recently as well. I would like to see him as an addition. I think a lot of guys in the breakout tournament, in fact, could just go into to 205 Live. I think even Angel Garza, I think, would be really good for it as well, because these are the guys that have got a different look about them, different charisma. And I think that that's something that is kind of lacking at the moment in 205 Live. I don't feel there is as much personality since Buddy Murphy, Cedric Alexander, Ali all left. It feels like now that a lot of the superstars that are currently in there, either their gimmicks are not getting the sort of TV time they could, they've changed the gimmicks, so they don't have as much personality, or they're just hard-hitting guys like Oney Lorcan. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think that would be good to see just a little bit more personality come to 205 Live, and that for me would really boost it. So one of those three guys, I mean, even Kushida would be a great addition for 205 Live. It's just that the thing is, when you look at the guys that perhaps could be in 205 Live, a lot of people look at it that they should be on the main roster instead. I mean, you look at guys like Ricochet, he could be in 205 Live, but he's too good for it, according to WWE. You can see that it's an afterthought, so it's hard to say who definitely would or wouldn't. But going to your original point, I would love to see Gargano in there, but I think a lot of those breakout guys would be kind of good because they're probably going to find it hard to get the NXT time and to get the takeover time as well. So just push them straight in the cruiserweight division. And they'll have their audience. They'll have that exposure. They'll get live big audiences every single week, and maybe they can make 205 a bigger thing again. Next question comes from Carl Codrington Allen. Do you believe Dana Brooke will make it to WWE main roster despite her performing live on main event? Well, that's a good question. I mean, to be honest, really, when you look at it, hard work pays off. So there's not to say no when you ask this, because I think Dana Brooke's improving, and it's nice to actually just to break away with to get a Dana Brooke question, because I've kind of one subject I've kind of wanted to talk about for a while, so I'm very grateful this question's come in. I think that she's massively improving. When you see her week to week, I think that she's definitely improving, and she could be someone that would be deserving of getting TV time on the main roster. And I think that she will break in eventually to the main roster. Would she make it into a championship level? I'm not so sure. But it feels at the moment that she's doing well with what she's doing. And if she can get to herself in a situation where maybe the gimmick can get over with what she wants to do, maybe she just needs to try and have something like verbally to stand out more. Rather than just saying I deserve TV time. You see her on Twitter with people when they give her a bit of stick. She's always got something to give back. If you could find a way of getting that on TV, I think that she can have a place on the main roster or on Raw or SmackDown every single week. The problem is there's just so many talented people that some people just aren't even getting TV time in general. So the fact she's getting on main event maybe even says that maybe she's doing all right. And our last question is going to come from Mark World Order. Which wrestler would make the best US president? I love it. It's a fun, creative question, this. Now, it's not really given a specific time of any era. But I mean, if you were to look at it, I would probably say that The Rock would be an obvious answer, mainly due to his popularity. I think that he would be really good. It would be great as well if there was any need to have his catchphrases and stuff when he's doing political debates and stuff like that. I think would be really fun. The Rock's always got away with his words. So, and I think the guy is popular. So I mean, to be fair, not to say it's a popularity contest, but it is. I'm sure The Rock, if he was to ever go for it, would probably stand a very good chance in the running. I'm sure Mick Foley would also have a good run with the politics kind of side. He's got the catchphrase "Have a nice day," and I'm sure he'd always get his cheap pop. Right here in Washington DC. I'm sure that'd be quite fun as well. But I mean, if we're looking at people in WWE right now, and of course, technically still not a wrestler of today, but I think Triple H probably would be a good shout as well. Just purely because of the fact we look at NXT and WWE, you used to always see signs in the Attitude Era, Vince McMahon for president, and it feels now that everyone feels Triple H knows what WWE fans want and not Vince McMahon. So maybe he can bring a bit of his NXT flavour, let's say, and give everybody what they want. But that's all from me anyway. That's Ask SCW. Like I say, if you've got any questions, do get them in the comments section below. I'd love to know people's feelings as well on the questions that have been asked. What would you answer to any of those questions that were given? Give a follow to everyone on Twitter as well. Let's ask the questions. They're all great people as well, always getting involved here on SCW. And very grateful for you guys throwing in your questions. And particularly as well, I'd like to know the feelings of people's WrestleMania 36 card as well. Definitely is a fun topic. And of course, it is the sort of time of year WWE will start thinking about it. I mean, by the time we get to Survivor Series, they need to start thinking about the Royal Rumble, who's going to win the Royal Rumble, which of course leads to WrestleMania. So the planning does start kicking in not too far from around now. So it would be interesting to know people's thoughts with the current roster, how they would book them, and where they put them in for the main events for WrestleMania. It would be interesting to know your thoughts in the comments below. But please like, share, and subscribe as well. Don't forget you can also follow me on Twitter. It should be coming up on your screen now. But that's all from me here on SCW Ask SCW episode 4. Like I say, I'm aiming to do episode 5, maybe the video to upload. I'd like it to be uploaded by Thursday if possible. Definitely will be uploaded by Friday. I think that's a safe bet, definitely by Friday. But get your questions in by Wednesday because I definitely would like to record by then. So, yeah. But anyway, that's all from me anyway. I'll see you next time here on SCW. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.